Cali X Boxing in the building. Got my guy Brooks Gas here. We were just talking backstage. Life is good. It's Thursday. Everything is beautiful. It's good to have one of the OGs of the YTBC on here, a man who goes way back with the boxing knowledge. And we're going to talk heavyweight boxing today because, you know, Tyson Fury's out there. Rematch clause 70-30, 50-50, 60-40. You know, we got all this stuff going on, and it's hard to process as a boxing fan who's been around for so long to see these guys negotiating and posturing on social media, etc., etc. We like guys who fight, right, Bruce? I mean, we just want to see guys fight.
Absolutely, Callie. And first of all, let me thank you for inviting me on here. It's a beautiful day. I think spring has sprung down here in New England, man. There's not a cloud in the sky. It's in the almost 50 degrees, and man, it just feels like life, brother. It feels like the beginning of life. And heavyweight boxing, me and heavyweight boxing. That's the first thing that attracted me to the game. I know it doesn't run the game today. We have so many amazing lighterweight fighters, but man, there's just something about those big guys in the ring. I can remember watching it way back in the 1970. Even Ali, I was a young casual back then. I watched Ali's career, and bro, I love talking heavyweight boxing. I think I have a little bit of knowledge on here. I hope I don't embarrass myself, but bro, I mean, and then I see IMD over there. He says he's got one rolled and two poured and ready to go, brother. Oh, yeah, man.
Shout out Demetrio G, Guru in the building, OJ22, Jesus M. Is there a press conference soon for Fury versus? I have no idea. Remy in the building. Always appreciate you coming through, Remy. Roy Jones Jr. is back. Yeah, that's disgusting, too. I'm going to have to start my Occupy Roy Jones Jr. movement again because Roy Jones is fighting in a real fight, I believe. I think it's next month or maybe this month. I don't know. I want to keep my eyes closed for that one. I don't want to see Roy fight anymore. Don't like it. Don't like it. Don't like it. And I'll tell you this, too. I don't know if you know this guy right here, Mr. Boxing Today, too, was very active. That guy knows his heavyweight boxing. So hopefully we do it justice today, and I'm going to lean on you heavy for like old school heavyweight boxing. And I brought this up.
I'm not as old as I look, Callie. I've had a rough life, man. I'm only 45 years old, to be honest with you. But it's been.
You look good for 45. You look
good. Thank you, man. I think I have underwear 45 years old in the drawer, bro.
Look, I've said this for a couple months now. I see Big Baby Anderson fight, and he looks. We've said on this channel for a while now. It's going to be almost impossible, nearly impossible to build your next superstar because we're now in a part-time boxing model. Guys are fighting once a year. If you're lucky, you'll see them twice a year. And then you'll be lucky even if they fight once a year, if it's going to be a big fight. And now any type of meaningful fight, they're going to put on a pay-per-view. They're putting behind an added paywall. Lomachenko-Haney is going to be pay-per-view. Fury Usyk pay-per-view. Benavidez Plant pay-per-view. Ryan versus Tank pay-per-view. Anything meaningful now, they're putting behind the added paywall. So with all of these obstacles that we put in place, it's going to be difficult, almost impossible to build boxing's next superstar, for Canelo to hand the baton to somebody, right? But if there's a guy out there who's going to do it, to me, is Jared Anderson because he's got everything. He can punch, obviously, he can knock guys out. And you watch him fight, you don't know until he goes 12 rounds, right? But he seems to have a versatile fighting style to where he can use lateral movement. He can box behind the jab. He's got boxing ability, right? So I watched this guy fight, and it almost seems already like he can hang or beat top 10 heavyweights already. And on top of all of that, Bruce, he's got the gift of gab. He understands that you have to have the ring entrance. You have to have the post-fight interview, and what you're saying, you're not saying, oh, I want to thank my promoter and we'll let them handle it. He's calling fighters out after, in the post-fight press. He's got it all. He's the full package. Do you agree with that, first of all? Like, do you agree that this guy can be a star, a superstar in the sport?
Well, he's very impressive so far, but there is that question mark. I mean, he's only had 13 fights. It seems like someone who's been a pro for that many years. I mean, I I'm sorry, but I go back to Ali and I go back to Holmes, but even Mike Tyson. We look at a baby Mike Tyson, Customato. He knew you have him in the ring every month. You don't give him a chance to get soft or to loosen up. And when he's not in the ring, he's in the gym and he's learning new techniques. Where after 2 years of becoming a pro, Mike Tyson was a feared heavyweight. He was after 3 years he had unified the championship. And it just doesn't seem like these guys today. They're more on the business side of it. They're looking for the biggest payday, the most exposure, and also we have promotional wars like I've never seen before in my day. Back in the day, Bob King and Don King and Bob Arum, they could get together. They could co-promote a big fight. I mean, absolutely, money spoke. Money was bigger than A sides and B sides, and I mean all this crazy. Bro, I never even heard of hydration clauses until recently. I've been around the sport for 50 years, bro.
Not only it's a catch weight, and then they have a rehydration clause on top of it. So it's a double whammy. You have a catch weight, and then you have a rehydration clause.
And then they're trying to get the fans to pay mucho bucks out of the pocket to see something that's almost as staged as a WWE event. It really seems like that. It's taken the drama out of it. It's almost turned it into a one-sided fight, especially for people who don't buy pay-per-views, who need something exciting to spend their money on. Because man, I walk around and I ask people on the streets about boxing, and they talk about it, but then when I mention, do you watch it? Oh, I can't afford to watch that now, man. I don't know who these guys are, and they want these crazy prices, and I'm sorry, man. I'll wait till it comes on free TV, or I'll watch it on listen to you guys call it on YouTube. But I think it's really going in the wrong direction as far as the promotional angle. I think boxing needs sponsorships, like for instance, Budweiser. Budweiser was huge back in the day. It would be plastered on the ringside, and 80% of the people watching it would have a can of Bud in their hands. There was that association. Now it just seems like it's such a niche sport that it's not very fan friendly anymore. They're not bringing in the new fans. They're just not out there. Maybe with this celebrity boxing, with this Jake Paul. And all this crazy stuff going on. Who knows? Maybe it's what boxing needs. It's not what I need, but maybe they're looking to expand. Obviously, looking to expand the audience because paying $80 for a pay-per-view it's almost predetermined, an undercard. The names are non-existent. I don't know how boxing is going to survive the way it's going right now.
Well, I'll tell you this. Back in the day, we knew where to get certain levels of fights, right? Like Tuesday night fights. We knew what we were going to get from Tuesday. And James Toney used to fight on Tuesday night fights in between his big fights, right? I remember watching Angel Man Freddy on Tuesday night fights, clear as day on USA. But we used to get Friday night fights, ESPN. We knew the level of opposition we were going to get there, right? It was going to be like they're building an Alan Green, or they're putting two guys in the crossroads together in the main event, and then putting prospects underneath that. You knew where to go to get that level. And then you knew you go to HBO Championship Boxing, you go to HBO Boxing After Dark to get a certain level of fight, and then Showtime. Now it's sort of mixed, right? We don't know where to go to get the prospects. The prospects are buried deep on undercards, sometimes untelevised cards. So that's another problem with it, is we don't know where to find the prospects. We're not getting to know the prospects early. And that's another part of the problem with building up stars. We're not seeing them early on. And we're not building stars organically anymore. Another issue, and you brought this up, is, and I talk to Steve Kim about this all the time, it's overtrained, underfought. You have guys doing 8 to 10 week training camps. And I've been told by guys behind the scenes, one of the reasons why this is, it's cycle on, cycle off, right? And people don't want to say that out loud. That's the reason they're doing long training camps and less actual fighting, drug testing. But they're doing long training camps. They're beating the hell out of their bodies with sparring, with strength and conditioning, and they're not doing as much fighting. So it's actually not as good for them, not as safe. And by the way, they're draining themselves all the way down 20, 30 pounds to make weight, and they're rehydrating, ballooning another 10 to 15 pounds on fight night. So it's actually less safe, and we're getting less fights in the process. And that's another issue. Overtrained, underfought. And I just think if we get back to guys fighting at least twice a year, three times a year, we have prospects, Bruce, fighting 4 or 5 times a year now. Like Jared Anderson, he's going to be headlining, I think, in July. Really, Jared Anderson should be fighting before then, at this point in his career. Jared Anderson shouldn't be transitioned to a twice-a-year fighter this early. He should still be fighting 4 or 5 times a year, building that base. But another issue is, another thing I wanted to ask you is, you know, I hear this all the time. I hear this narrative brought up all the time is that today's heavyweights would be way too big for heavyweights of the past. I'm sure you've heard this, right? Tyson Fury 6'9", Deontay Wilder's too powerful. Guys like Ali, who was weighing, you know, I remember I saw the clip on YouTube. You know, Muhammad Ali and Ken Norton, their weigh-in was on the Johnny Carson show.
I watched that
clip. He weighed 217 pounds, which is around the same what Usyk weighs, right? Which is around what Deontay Wilder was weighing. So this narrative that guys of the past, heavyweights of the past, the Joe Frazier's, the Marcianos, the Ali's, the Tysons, wouldn't have hung with heavyweights of today because these guys are too big. Do you agree with that, or are you where I'm at with it, where I don't see that?
No, I see. We've seen some incredibly large heavyweights, and they have more coordination. Like, you know, they're definitely in a different class than the heavyweights of yesteryear was. I mean, the Jess Willards, the people like that, the Primo Caneras, they were freaks, and they didn't have the coordination that the fighters have today because they have better training, they have better nutrition. I mean, it's a different era. But as far as how the boxers are better, I think fighters like Joe Frazier, I mean Ali, Holmes, the guys who are 220 and under, I think they would have fit in just fine, just like Alexander Usyk is today. The thing is that there aren't that many of them, and people don't really give them the opportunity. And now boxing is we have more of the cruiserweight, and then this crazy Bridgerweight that came around. You know, I mean the back in the day, the purists didn't even want to hear about the cruiserweights. You know, they would say, "Oh, Rocky Marciano would laugh at that, would laugh at that title," and so on and so forth. But today it's just so confusing. You know, back in even like we look at Larry Holmes. Larry Holmes was never unified. He was never undisputed. He never had more than one belt in his career, but yet there was no doubt about it for 7 or 8 years back in the late 70s and the early 80s. Larry Holmes was the baddest MF on the planet, and you could ask anybody out there, and they'd say, "What title does he have?" And they'd say, "He has the heavyweight championship of the world," and that said it all. Today, there's nobody that we can put that tag on. You know what I'm saying, man?
How underrated, just to tell people, was Larry Holmes? How underrated is that guy? Because to me, he runs through every current heavyweight. Runs through
him. Great style. I mean, he had a fluid jab that hurt, and he had that overhand right that came out of nowhere, and he trained with Muhammad Ali. He was instilled that discipline that I don't think fighters have that today. Fighters today, they're caring more about their vacations, and they're caring what the clothes they wear and the size of the gold around their neck. I just think the focus is off. When Larry Holmes was fighting, he knew the money was going to come, and Larry Holmes is an astute businessman, bro. He built the city of Eastern Pennsylvania right up. He put factories there. Probably, I'd say there are hundreds of people that are on his payroll from the city, but he concentrated on the boxing aspect. He honed his skills. he had the right the tunnel vision, the focus going on. No outside interference, because we didn't even hear about Larry Holmes getting drunk and getting pulled over for DWI or beating up his wife or any of that bullshit. I mean, I think it was a different type of a discipline that fighters had. Where today the fighters think they're the shit, and they can do no wrong, and they're not answering to authorities. They don't answer to the public. It's just a totally different era, man. Just a totally different era.
Yeah, and I think what blows up the narrative that guys today would be too big for past heavyweights is you have a cruiserweight who has already unified 4 of the 5 major titles, right? He's got the ring belt now too. So he's gone 20 fights and he's consolidated 9 of the 10 major belts that are in the 2 weight classes he's competed in, but he's come up to heavyweight and had success already to where, he's 1 fight away from undisputed. So I think that blows up. This guy's 220 pounds. That's what he's fighting at heavyweight, I think. So he's blown up this narrative that guys of the past would have had problems with big heavyweights of today. I think he's blown that up. I mean, do we really believe Usyk is better than Holyfield? I don't know. I would pick Holyfield over Usyk, and that's nothing against Usyk, but do we really believe Usyk is better than a Mike Tyson at heavyweight or a Marciano? And that's my point is, perhaps he does well against those guys. I don't know, but I think it blows up that narrative. But another thing that I'm always interested in is, where does Mike Tyson fit overall all time in the heavyweight division? Because we know in his prime, right? He gives everybody problems. Everybody. We know that. But all time, we can't forget what happened in the late 90s, early 2000s, all time. Where does Mike Tyson fit in the picture? Is he top 10? Is he not? I mean, where do you see that?
Well, that's an interesting question, because we could put stipulations on that, because between the years of 1986 and 1989, I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's Joe Louis. I don't care if it's a prime Ali. It's going to be a 50-50 fight with that Mike Tyson. That Mike Tyson was the baddest man on the planet. He was indestructible. He went through the heavyweight division, didn't duck anybody. I don't care what anybody says. He was not given soft touches. He took on everybody that Don King put in front of him, and that Mike Tyson, he would be in the top. I hate to say that the number 1, the number 2, the number 3, because I don't know how Joe Louis and Ali would do against each other, and I don't know how Evander Holyfield and Joe Frazier. It's all such stipulations. It's so conjective on there, subjective. I'm sorry, and but I would say that prime Mike Tyson, he was one of the best out of them all. If you take his whole career after prison, where he became a multi-millionaire and didn't know how to handle it. He had his mother-in-law. He had a crazy ex-wife. He had a promoter stealing from him. I mean, that Mike Tyson post-prison, it would be unfair to put him into the ratings category if we want to rate them, because I would rate like Joe Louis with his 25 defenses. I wouldn't rate the Joe Louis after fighting Walcott. It wasn't the same person. Mm-hmm. The Ezra Charles fights. So it's exactly. So it's hard to rate the whole career of Mike Tyson, because it was the greatest at one time, and then like the McBride fight, and when he just quit on his ass, mm-hmm. and some of his later fights that were really not
the Holyfield ear biting thing, Lennox Lewis getting knocked out.
Yeah, that was not prime Tyson, and I can't. If we have to rate him, if we're going to rate his entire career, that has to be included in there, and he does fall short because of that. But damn, during '86 and '89, you could go home and put HBO on, and you would see this killer from Brooklyn, New York, or the Bronx. I don't even know where he was from anymore, and he was just a one-man wrecking crew out there. I mean, Pinkland Thomas and dude, Tony Tucker, Tony Tubbs. We can go on and on and on. And there was no competition. Basically, he wasn't even in a difficult fight. Michael Spinks, one of the most highly anticipated heavyweight fights of all time, lasted a minute.
That's the first boxing match I can ever remember watching. Right there, the first one.
And Michael Spinks was a bad heavyweight. He would, I speak with Leon Mohammed. He's a friend of mine now. In fact, he called me this morning. He called me yesterday. He's not doing too well, but he's got a sharp mind and he loves to talk boxing. And for some reason, him and I just clicked off. Where I'll get a text from him. Hey, you want to talk? And bango. And he'll tell me, because he's a G. He was right in on the shit. He was with Butch Lewis and Michael Spinks, Leon Spinks, and he tells me how good these guys were and how good Tyson was. And this is the kind of conversation I get where I pretty much put my mute. I mute my phone. I just listen because oh man, I almost lost my train of thought here. But the heavyweights of Mike Tyson's era, Mike was the baddest. And being told from somebody who put a couple of heavyweights against him and just saw that era, I would have to rate him at the time as the best on Mount Rushmore if this was 1989 and we were speaking. But now, since the careers moved on a little bit, and we saw how he wasn't the same. The fight against Lennox Lewis. I knew that I knew what was going to happen there. I knew that it was going to be a one-sided beatdown. Mike Tyson knew it too. He took it like a man. It was a passing of the torch, and he was a badass fighter. But as far as rating his career on those fights, he falls short. He quit on his stool. He bit Holyfield's ear off.
That's still crazy to hear.
It is, but he's still a Hall of Fame fighter, bro, and he's still
he was the baddest man on the planet. I mean, yeah. But you bring up a great point. In Hale has taught me about basketball, and I'm about to go on a basketball binge. March Madness is going to be starting here in about half hour. But Hale once told me, my friend Hale, and he's a basketball guy. He runs basketballnews.com, big website. And he said, you can't really, you can't make lists with guys you've never seen fight in person because you can't put in the proper perspective the era that these guys were fighting. You didn't live through it. You didn't see all the games. So you can't really judge Michael Jordan and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar if you weren't around for the 70s and 80s when Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was around and see how dominant he was. I had old heads. I still have old heads. I live in South Louisiana. I have old basketball heads who tell me all the time, you didn't witness Pistol Pete Maravich play. So you can't put in a proper perspective the offensive machine that this guy was. And he was playing in Chuck Taylors. He was playing before a hyperbolic chamber and strength and conditioning where these kids, I see these kids, I train kids in basketball today. These kids at 5-6 years old have coaches for different things. They have like specialist coaches. And these guys back then, they didn't have all of this, right? So you can't compare the eras. It's not fair to guys before. And I mean, if you want to see what Pistol Pete would be in today's game, you're probably looking at it with Steph Curry, to be honest. But
they didn't have a 3-point shot back then.
He averaged 44 a game without a 3-point shot in college. It's absurd. Like that record, and he only played 3 years. You weren't allowed to play on varsity college as a freshman. So he still holds it was almost broken, by the way. Got 3 points from broken this year, close to broken this year. But he did it in 3 years without a 3-point line. And this record may never fall. That's the offensive machine and he was playing in Chuck Taylors. Bruce, I can't even walk in Chuck Taylors, much less run the court. But so I bring that up is let's narrow it. Like, let's do 21st century heavyweights. Let's do from like Lennox Lewis towards his end on. Who's the best heavyweight you saw from that era? Like from 2000 on. Is it like, do you go Vlad's whole career? Like Vlad had a dominant career. I think Lennox beats Vlad. I think if they go head to head, the brothers, I thought Vitaly would beat Vlad. but we got to take into account Vlad went a decade without basically losing rounds.
Well, one of the biggest disappointments out there, who I thought would become totally overshadowing almost everybody, was Riddick Bowe.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Riddick Bowe had all the tools. He had the power, the speed. The only thing he didn't have was that desire. Once he got Marvin Hagler, the silk sheets, the silk pajamas,
Yeah.
he didn't want to get out of him. And man, his first fight with Evander Holyfield, that fight stands out in anyone's mind as one of the greatest back and forth heavyweight fights in modern boxing history. And there are a lot of them, like the Klitschko's. They were huge. They had power, but they had that stand-up European style that we weren't accustomed to seeing anymore. We were accustomed to seeing the slick black fighters, or the tough Mexican fighters. When we got Klitschko, that 80-inch jab popping in someone's face, and when they thought they were slipping that, all of a sudden, ba-boom, big right hand out of nowhere. So they're definitely up there in the higher echelon.
He put you to sleep before he puts his opponent to sleep, really. I mean, if we talk about Vlad, like, a lot of his fights were not fun to watch. And that's why I say, like, I think if Fury and Usyk fight, I think Fury is going to be watching a lot of film on Vlad, because that's the type of fight he needs to fight, is constantly chop up the fight, because Usyk's a rhythm fighter. And you don't want that guy to get in a rhythm. So I don't think Fury is going to be throwing anything other than a two-punch combination. It's right, left, straight, right. Every once in a while he'll throw a hook, but he's going to lean on Usyk, cuddle him, and try to chop up that fight and win a 12-round decision. I don't think he's going to let Usyk try to get in a rhythm.
Well, I think once again, I had a little mental thought here. I'm listening to something in the back there that my wife is going on. Repeat. Give me that question one more time, Callie.
Like Fury versus Usyk. Let's start with that.
Okay.
How do you see that fight playing out? And do you think it plays out? I mean, we can go back to what we were saying at the top. The constant posturing, negotiating in the background through social media, not keeping it in the background. Do you see that fight playing out, number one? And number two, if it plays out, do you agree with me that Fury is just going to yuck up the fight and disappoint the fight fans?
Well, that's something I've noticed about Fury ever since the first Wilder fight. That fight, he was so on. He was a boxing just a freak, bro. A guy 250 pounds dancing around on his toes, and I think he gave Wilder a boxing lesson that night. You know, those two knockdowns that turned the fight into a draw, perhaps. Mm-hmm. But after that, I just saw Tyson Fury as going not as sharp, relying more on holding and hitting. Just a different fighter. I think once again he realized he thinks that he's paid his dues, and now he's just trying to reap the benefits of that title. He's really screwing the fans over. I mean, he should be taking an example from these fights. Even looking at Klitschko. Klitschko fought on HBO all the time. I mean, he even in his losing efforts, Vladimir, the Bird fight, the Brewster fight, the Corey Sanders fight. Those were exciting, man. That was Friday nights, and he came back from those fights. That's the thing. An L was not the end of the world. These fighters today, I think they're afraid to get that L on their record. I think they think that's gonna put them way back in the pack, where it's not. It's you have a close fight with somebody and you get an L. We want to see a rematch. We want to see trilogies, whatever. But you're not going to lose your standing. I mean, look at AJ's fight. The dude that he's fighting coming up. He just lost that fight with Zhang. What's his name again, bro? I can't.
I gotta bring it up.
But you see how much of an impression these cats make on us, where we can't even remember their name. We can't even, you know.
What's interesting?
That should not be the case.
You know what's interesting about, as I bring that up, what's interesting about Vlad's career is he's one of those guys, and I've often said, like a guy is who he is at a certain point, right? And it's Jermaine Franklin. That's who he's
Yeah,
fighting
Jermaine Frank was correct.
next. He's nowhere near the top 10. He's okay fighter, one loss, but to me, it's a get back on the horse type of fight for Anthony Joshua, and hopefully they stay true to fighting 3 times this year in a bigger fight behind that. But what's interesting about Vlad's career to me is he was the exception to the rule. And the rule is a guy is who he is at a certain point. So if you have a guy who's chinny and getting knocked out, chances are anytime he steps up, like an Amir Khan, right? Amir Khan has some good wins, but for the most part, when he stepped up, he got knocked out. When a guy is chinny, he gets knocked out. When a guy just has a left hand, he's likely not going to develop that right hand over time. It's hard to change a fighter when he gets to a certain point. Vlad changed. Like Vlad got with Emmanuel Stewart and never looked back. To me, that's one of the best jobs of rebuilding a fighter that I've ever seen is what Emmanuel did with Vlad Klitschko. To where he could take that guy who was getting knocked out by guys who weren't big punchers, to be honest, and were naturally smaller than him, and protecting that chin for the rest of his career. Developing a style to where that chin was not going to be checked. Because the chin was the chin. Like that's the same chin. The guy who fought Tyson Fury, that's the same chin that fought Bird. It's the same chin. And he developed this guy into one of the most dominant heavyweights to where mandatory unification. And he's constantly defending. And it's not the best heavyweight era, but he did it for a decade, Bruce. That's one of the best jobs I've seen. Him with Emmanuel Stewart.
Yeah, and it's the same with Lennox Lewis. Once he got knocked out by Oliver McCall, he went to Emmanuel Stewart. And I heard Emmanuel talking about this. He said that the first meeting, they were in a restaurant, they're having dinner, and it wasn't even finalized. This was their first meeting, but Lennox was standing up saying, if I keep the right hand over here and the left here, and Emmanuel said he stood up and he said, no, I want those elbows here, and I want that chin. And this is in a restaurant, and we can see the difference that Emmanuel Stewart made on Lennox Lewis, where people like that, they have a third eye. They can see things that we don't see. Going back to the Customados, the Chappie Blackburns, they were special. We don't see trainers like that around anymore. We just don't see trainers who the ones we see now. I think they're more into it for the glamour. I think they want to see their name, and then the fighters they train beneath them. Back then, it was even a celebrity trainer like Angelo Dundee. You wouldn't really know he was in the picture until you saw the fight on television. Hey, Dundee's training Pinklin Thomas. I didn't know that, and it was it wasn't such an ego game like it is today. Today it's more of an ego trip, and plus talking to a lot of these old school fighters and trainers, they said the guys say they're just not teaching the same skills that we were taught.
Inside fighting,
defense, how to stay off the ropes and know what to do when your back hits the ropes. And I'm listening to guys like Tim Witherspoon telling me these are good fighters, and they're real careful when they talk, because right now on social media, you don't want to say the wrong thing, but they're pretty much giving the message where trainers today are way off base. There are a few of them out there. You got the Buddy McGirts, the Freddie Roaches, guys who know how to develop a fighter. But then there are others that it just seems that you look at the corner and the fighters not even paying attention to their trainers. They're paying attention to the seconds, the cut man. It's crazy. It's not that tunnel vision, real boxing. It's just that's just
like
not.
with every sport, by the way. They're starting to zone out coaches altogether and almost becoming their own coach. And coaches are afraid to coach. They're afraid to actually coach now because they don't want to upset the fighter or the athlete or the basketball player, the football player. It's frustrating to watch. But I bring this graphic up right here. This is the current heavyweight division. Usyk is seen as the Ring Magazine champion. Tyson Fury's right there. Hopefully they fight each other. Deontay Wilder Anthony Joshua, Joe Joyce, who I love, by the way, Andrew Ruiz Jr., Dillian White, Luis Ortiz. So we got Joseph Park. We got the whole list here. And Jared Anderson will be right on the outside of that, looking to crack the top 10 pretty soon. You see this image here. So who do you think will be seen as the heavyweight champion, let's say, 2 years from now? Because I look at the picture, it's weird and it's hard to figure out because it looks like Fury's got 1 foot in the door, 1 foot out the door. Wilder's talking about fighting Ngannou, so it looks like he's got 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Does Anthony Joshua have what it takes to rebuild after the Usyk losses? Joe Joyce, he's only got 15 fights, but he's 37, 38 years old. Andy Ruiz Jr., I don't think he'll ever get there. I think he's a one-hit wonder. So who do you think is going to be the guy 2 years from now? It's hard. It's really hard to determine.
I'll tell you, man, it changes almost on a daily basis. When I saw Andy Ruiz knock out AJ, I said, oh, yeah, this man is the goods.
Mm-hmm.
Once he does this, now he's going to have the facilities to train. He's going to be able to get the best diet going on. And what do we see? We see the rematch. He looks like the Pillsbury Doughboy, and it was just a boring. He got outboxed, and he just went back to the also rans. He comes around. He has a mediocre fight with who was it? Chris Arreola.
Mm-hmm.
And there was that Joe Joyce. I dig Joe Joyce, man. But like you said, the age factor. But then again, I mean, Joe Joyce, he stops Danny Dubois, and Danny Dubois goes on and gets the WBA Reggie title, and now he's more in the driver's seat, where Joe Joyce, who beat him, wasn't even offered that WBA Reggie belt. He was coming off that loss of an undefeated fighter, and they blew the momentum on Joe Joyce, especially at that age. I don't know what Joe Joyce is going to do now. I see him talking to Tyson Fury after that. What was the fight that he just had with
Dillian White?
No, not Dillian White. Derek Chisora.
Oh yeah, Chisora. Yeah.
And Joe, he said, well, if I don't fight Usyk, then it'll be Joe Joyce. And Joe Joyce is just sitting there, kind of like with a smile on his face. No really sense of an animosity between them. No sense of we want to see this fight. We want to see these guys in the ring. It was more like a business thing. But back in the day, when a fight was over, you had a guy like Larry Holmes. He'd be calling out Jerry Cooney. He'd be calling out the number one contender. I mean, somebody even like some dude like James Toney. He would never rest on his laurels. He would want the next on the line. I remember when Iran Barkley won the middleweight title. I think it might have been was it the super middleweight? Anyway, he beat Darren Van Horn,
mm-hmm.
and he's in the ring, and James Toney's at ringside, and Barkley's the nicest guy in the world. He's got a smile on his face. He thought James Toney was going to come in the ring and congratulate him, and James Toney came in there, slapped his hand away and said, I want that belt. And it was like Iran Barkley was like, oh. But then all of a sudden you could see Iran. This is what it's all about. They built up that fight. It was a great fight. But before the fight, it got back to their dressing room. The opponent was on their lips. Now you got to have press conferences. You got to have pre-contracts. I don't even know what this before
the new age boxing fan thinks that you can cut that process out. You have to build fights traditionally through trash talk right after fights. You can't build it through social media, and even if you do, it might still be big, but it's not going to be as big as it could have been. So that's always been my criticism of Tank is, he can sell all that stuff, but he could have been bigger had you built him the traditional way. He could have been bigger. But my thing with Joe Joyce is he's in a tough spot because he's 37. He's got a style that's going to give everybody problems. So he's avoidable. And he's avoidable at 37. So my fear is for the next 2-3 years, guys are just going to divert around him until he's 39, 40 years old. And then at that point, the skills start to diminish. And I watched this guy fight, and I think he can beat anybody. I mean, I could see him giving Usyk problems. Those guys already fought in the World Series of Boxing way back before it counted for professional records. But So Usyk can hang with him even with the size, but I could see him giving issues to everybody stylistically. I could see Joe Joyce being that type of problem, but once again, it comes into business. Will he have that opportunity to be the best in the division? So when I asked myself who's going to be the guy 2 years from now, I don't know because I don't know if Usyk's still going to be around. He's hinted at retirement. I don't know if Fury's going to be around. He's retired like 12 times already. I don't know if Wilder's going to be around 37 years old talking about fighting a UFC guy. Who's going to be the guy?
This is why boxing is so weak today, because see, those questions years ago, that wouldn't even be a question. Boxing just went on. It just built momentum up as it went down the line. That's why they made nobody complained about what a boxer's salary was. There was no A side, B side. They made nice checks and they gave us the fights that we wanted to see. Now everything's in negotiations. Talk to my lawyer, call Al. I mean, all this crazy stuff, and it gets real tired. It gets real tired, and it's losing boxing fans. I think that's why boxing is becoming so. It's becoming such a niche sport because they're not cultivating any fans. There's no free, no ABC Wide World of Sports who are taking Olympians like Sugar Ray Leonard and cultivating their careers. Watching them go through the preliminary stages, move on to 10-rounders, move on to regional titles. There's nobody that they're doing that to now because they're not fighting enough, and we lose interest real easily. Yesteryear fighters, they fought every 2 or 3 months in the beginning, early in their careers. You didn't see a fighter 18-0 fighting for not looking for a title shot. It was just if you kept boxing and you created interest in yourself, those fights would come. You couldn't be ignored. Now it's easy to ignore Joe Joyce because he only fights once a year, and he can be sidestepped. If he was out there fighting on a consistent basis, almost like a Clubber Lang, we're going to know who he is, and we're going to demand that he gets his title shot. We're going to demand Tyson Fury, Alexander Usyk. Look at this guy. He's knocking everybody out. You guys are just talking. You're going to let this man be the people's champion without fighting him? This is what's lacking today. People just don't have that. The boxers don't have that pride in the game. They have more pride in their bank accounts and how many viewers they have. It's just a whole different world. I'm an alien in this boxing world, bro. I'm learning new stuff every day, and I'm not even going to complain, Callie, because I'm just going to try to understand it and watch it and enjoy it, man. It's
we ain't
all I
going
can
nowhere.
do.
We ain't going nowhere. We're staying, and this is the current heavyweight division, like I said. And when I see this, I see a division that, in my opinion, is historically weak but fun at the same time. It's still a fun division. This is a fun division. Like Usyk is the goods. He's the goods. Fury is the goods as well. Wish he would fight more. Wilder, I still need to see more from him because Wilder is seen as from a bunch of people. A bunch of people see this guy as a first ballot Hall of Famer. I need to see more. Like from Wilder, I need to see more. I need to see a bigger win than Bermani Stavern and Luis Ortiz. That big win still escapes him, right? And that's why I don't want to see him go the Ngannou route because the big win is still out there escaping him. I understand business-wise. Like business-wise, I understand why he would go the Ngannou route. If they're offering him like $100 million to fight this guy in a 2-fight thing, I understand why he would do that. It's an easy fight, right? But as a boxing fan, I want to see this guy go for it. I want to see him fight an Anthony Joshua, a Joe Joyce. Like go over there and do it and knock these guys out. That's what I want to see from Deontay Wilder. I still think he's short of like a Hall of Fame fighter. I think he's short of it.
Yeah, bro. And that Ngannou fight, see, I'm going to go back once again to Muhammad Ali. He fought a wrestler named Antonio Inoki in '76. Mm-hmm. It was a spectacular event. It sold out throughout the world. I think it was the largest viewed single sporting event in history, viewed by, I'm going to say 8 billion people saw that fight. but it was insane. Or maybe a billion. I'm sorry, man. I'm 8 billion dude. But anyway, it did not affect the heavyweight flow. He
Mm-hmm.
went back and forth Ken Norton a few months later, and it's all part of the structure of a fighter. A fighter fights. If somebody's challenging you, I mean, we got guys like Otto Weiling out there. We got guys like Frank Sanchez. We got the Mezian, McKean, all these undefeated fighters. Why aren't they getting their chance at fighting for one of these regional titles or one of these gatekeepers? It's almost like it's a picket fence there. There's a dozen of them up there, but they're just not fighting anybody with a pulse. They're
Mm-hmm.
waiting around to fight each other, and it takes a year to get these fights off the ground. Why don't they keep active, taking on these guys like Larry Holmes? He took on Ronaldo Snipes, an amazing fight, got knocked on his ass before the Cooney fight, and it made so much more interest in that Cooney fight because they said, hey, if Ronaldo Snipes can knock him out, watch what Jerry Cooney's going to do to him. But
Mm-hmm.
dude, it's that excitement is just not there today. I don't know if it's the matchmaking. I don't know if it's the monetary shit that goes along with it. But boxing could be huge. It could be every night, man. Sean O'Grady and Marv Alpert, and we look forward to seeing those two cats every weekend. Uh, Teddy Atlas and Bernstein, Friday nights, we wanted to watch them on ESPN. Now there's just not that recognition. It's not
Lampley
that.
Merchant. Lampley and
Oh,
Merchant.
yeah, bro. All those cats, man. Getting onto the HBO era. Now,
Emmanuel
now,
Stewart.
yeah, man. Yeah. And even bringing in fighters to commentate. Hagler was a great commentator. Ray Leonard was a great commentator during their careers. Ken Norton, like we were talking about the Norton and Ali fight. I think they had Joe Frazier as a commentator there. It just made the whole event special, and it's just not there anymore, bro. It's just not happening.
I brought this up. I know you've heard this. I'll parrot it again. Top 10 pound for pound last year, fought a combined 14 times. Top 10 pound for pound so far are not going to fight in the first 4 months of 2023. It's a huge problem. You need your star. You need your big fighters fighting. You need that you need that part of the process. And a rising tide lifts all ships. And if you have your top 10 active pound for pound, it's good for the sport. Really, I mean, we should be getting at least 27, 28, let's say, fights combined from our top 10, somewhere around that range. That's normal. Like, that's what we were getting in the 90s into the 2000s. And we got away from that to where we're getting half now. And if you get, I mean, if my math is correct, then you would get a pound for pound fighter on average fighting every other week. But now we've got the first quarter, a pound for pound fighter is not going to fight, Bruce. A pound for pound fighter is not going to fight in the first quarter of 2023. How does that happen? How does it get to that? How is that
In
acceptable?
no other sport does this happen. Only boxing. No, I mean not even cricket. I mean not even darts. The best fight the best on a regular, consistent basis. Boxing is the only bastardized sport now where we literally have to. I mean, man, I literally have to beg people to watch boxing. I'm like, you cats don't know what you're missing here, man. You gotta, you know, they think I'm nuts. I'm just a crazy old man who loves the fight game. And I mean, I love a fight. Period. I see a couple of winos going at it downtown, man, and clear the ring, ladies. This is what I love, and I'm used to seeing that on a regular basis, consistently, Tuesday nights. Thursday, Friday, bro, it was all the time. You wake up in the middle of the night, you could turn on ESPN and they'd be showing some fight from upstate New York or somewhere. And we've got so much. We've got the quantity now, but we just don't have the quality.
Mm-hmm. And another thing about it is this: we don't want to be the guys on the front porch yelling at the kids skateboarding, and we're not. We just bring this stuff up to say we could be doing it this way that could make things better than they are. So, I mean, to focus on the positives, although we're not building stars, you look at Top Rank's young roster, they're bringing in young talent. Like, they've got young talent on that roster. Some of it already realized, like Shakur Stevenson, Devin Haney, but they're still the best at identifying talent early and bringing it up. Jared Anderson is there. I mean, Keyshawn Davis is there. You've got guys. You've got guys. We're still developing young talent in this country. What I'd like to see is us organically build them up the traditional way still and develop stars out of these guys. Because in order for boxing to thrive, you have to have the star process of it. You have to. You have to have stars. You have to have your top fighters fighting. But to be on a positive note, we're still doing good things. We still have young talent, right? There's still young talent out there. There's still good fights on the schedule coming up this spring. There still are. Like Plant Benavidez is a good fight. It is.
Oh,
Usyk Fury, if they get it to the finish line, good fight. Ryan versus Tank, good fight. And I mean, let's just go there real quick. Like Plant Benavidez, who do you think wins that fight? Plant versus Benavidez.
that's a pick'em fight, man. I like Benavides. I think Benavides is real tough. Plant, I mean, his last fight, that hook that put Darrell down, that was fantastic thing. I mean, there's a lot of anticipation for this fight. It could go either way. I don't know what Benavides is going to look like coming in here, because frankly I can't remember a lot of his last fights. He hasn't had a lot of quality fights.
He fought Lemieux last time, and
yeah, Lemieux. This is what I can't base a pick on David Lemieux. Caleb Plant looked good, but Darrell was not at the peak of his game either. So it's a good fight, man. I don't know who's going to win. I'll be sitting here looking forward to it. I could care less who wins. I just want to see a good fight. And man, this is what drives me on fights like this. The Tank Davis and Ryan Garcia fight. That's another one. Garcia is fast. He's got a left hook. Tank's never been in the ring with anybody like that. And the same with Garcia.
Ryan's big. He's got a welterweight. He's got a welterweight frame, like a legit.
Yeah,
Ryan's big. There's a reason, Bruce. There's a reason they fought this at 136 with the rehydration clause. There's a reason for that. Ryan's a big. He's naturally bigger than Tank.
So you think this is going to really affect the fight, this rehydration clause?
I don't think it's going to affect it as much as people think, because from what I hear, he's got the right people in his team right now. He's back with Goosen. They have great chemistry, and apparently he's got a good strength and conditioning team around him as well to bring him down at the right speed and then rehydrate him under 10 pounds and do it to where it's not going to drain him. That's what I hear anyway. But I just think this is going to be a tougher fight for Tank than people think. Like, I see 3-1 odds for Tank. He's the favorite. Ryan's naturally bigger. Ryan's faster. Ryan has shown that he can come off the canvas against the Luke Campbell and then win the fight. I know Tank's probably a better fighter than Luke Campbell. The eye test tells us that. But if Tank is heavily reliant on that knockout, and we know Ryan's going to win some early rounds against Tank because everybody does. So what if Ryan stays up? Like, I don't know if Tank can win a decision against Ryan. I think he has to knock him out. Ryan's going to control the fight with that jab for a while.
This is the question mark that makes us look forward to seeing this fight. It really could go either way, because we know what Tank hits solidly goes to sleep. He's just got God-given amazing, out of this world power in those fists. And Ryan Garcia, he's been tagged, he's gotten back up, and we got to remember, he's been boxing since he was 5 years old. This guy's been in with every style. He knows how to deal with big punches like Tank. And it's just such a great fight. I'm surprised that it hasn't come out. And you know, the thing you were just saying, it got me saying, it's almost like it's not based on the fighter's laurels. It's almost based on the mad scientists who are going to put together the best diet and the best hydration program. It's just beyond. It's really beyond me, Callie. I'd like to see this fight at 140, weigh in the day before the fight. Maybe you'd have your 10-pound hydration clause or whatever. I think that hydration clause is bullshit myself anyway. Because if you're going to come in overweight, if you're going to come in 20 pounds over, how is that going to be muscle put on? How's that going to be power put on in a day? That's just
if we're
that's
going to
going
be
to be
doing
work.
rehydration clauses, then go back to same day weigh-ins, then, right?
I'd love to see same day weigh-ins, man. That because a fighter knows what he's going to be when he steps on a scale. He knows exactly what he's going to weigh, and his corner, his handlers. That's their responsibility. That's how they work as a team. You should come on that scale and bango. It should be just a formality, a ceremony before the fight. Because this is the story, the weight clause, the hydration, and people don't understand it, and they're talking more. They're trying to figure more about that than they are about the combatant. Yeah,
and that's what interests me, by the way, Bruce, is there's always the point in the fight where Tank ramps it up, right? We talked about how he's the most economical fighter in the sport. He throws 34 punches per round for a lightweight. He's just not throwing a lot of punches, but he starts to ramp it up around the mid round 6, round 7. That's where we're going to find out, because if he starts to ramp it up and we see Ryan start to get hesitant, and then we'll start to see that maybe Tank is going to end this thing. But if he starts to ramp it up like he did against Hector Luis Garcia, Matteo Barrios, Rolly Romero, and Ryan stands there and takes those punches, that's when it gets interesting, because now we got ourselves a fight.
It doesn't get much more interesting right now. This is a fight, and if there wasn't so much stipulations in there, it would be bigger. It would draw the purists out there. But with all this weight draining and going back and forth, I think we're in this internet age. We know more than we need to know, and instead of talking about the styles of the fights, what's going to happen, where the winner's going to go, because we have another great fight at lightweights coming up too with Lomachenko and Devin Haney.
Yeah,
and it's only natural for the winners of these two to fight each other. I mean, there's such short-sightedness in boxing today. That's what it is, man. That's what it is, brother.
And I was about to bring up that fight. Haney is like a 2.5 to 1 favorite against Lomachenko, and I'm starting to get the vibe that this may be the upset spring. Like, I think the underdogs are going to do way better than people think. I think Plant's going to have more success against Benavidez than people think. I think that Usyk is going to have more success against Fury than people think. Ryan versus Tank, and Lomachenko versus Haney. I think Jermaine Ortiz, it just turns out it's a tougher fight than people thought. Like, it's a tougher fighter than people thought. Because the year before, Lomachenko, coming off the Teofimo loss, he did well against Nakatani. He did well against the other fight. I forget off the top of my head. But he had 2 good wins that year. And then Jermaine Ortiz comes and gives him a tough fight. But Jermaine Ortiz is out there begging for a fight right now. And I think the reason is I don't think people really want to fight him. He's a tough fight, and he doesn't have a big name. I think Jermaine Ortiz was just better than people thought. So I think that this narrative that Lomachenko is aging out and he's on the way out, and then Haney is this young guy who's just going to jab and hold them to death. And good luck, man. Like, I've never seen guys successfully jab and hold Lomachenko to death. Like, Salido roughed him up in their fight. Teofimo really beat Lomachenko at his own game with speed, lateral movement, cutting off the angles. Will Haney be able to clinch and jab his way to a victory against Lomachenko? I don't know. I don't think he will. I think he's going to have to fight at some point. He's going to have to trade, Bruce. Like, he's going to have to trade in spots against Lomachenko.
Yeah, Lomachenko does not have as many miles on him as some people think. I think that he's been resting. I think he's going to come on and surprise a lot of people. And once again, Devin Haney has never been in the ring with anybody with the ability and the power of Lomachenko. I mean, once again, bro, boxing is good if we can just get these fights to happen with
This is where it starts, right? Like this is where it is. Like fights like this. This is what we're talking about. Besides the pay-per-view, because we'll complain about all these being on pay-per-views, but take the pay-per-view aspect out of it. These are all those fights where this is what boxing's supposed to be, to where we don't know. Like we're sitting here thinking about it both ways, but we can see all these fights going either way.
That's every day my mind changes. I go to that betting window and it's damn. Lomachenko, look at the pedigree on this kid, man. Mm-hmm. Look at the amateur career. And look at the damage he's done to former and current champions. And Devin Haney, this man was born to box. He's got the fluid motion. He's been in the gym forever. He's got a whole state behind him. I mean, this is just this is the stuff that great fights are made out of. And I'm not going to miss any of these fights. These are this is prime time for me. This is my heroin these days. This is what gets me off. And these buildups here, this is real buildups, because we're not talking about A sides and B sides, and he should be a PBC fighter, and we're talking about the mano a mano. Real simple. Boxing is a real simple game, and people try to make way too much out of it than they should make.
It's intrigue to all of them, because Ryan versus Tank, we're finally seeing them step up, and one of them's going to get a big win on their resume. And then you've got Plant versus Benavidez. It's 2 versus 3 in the division, and one of them, Plant already got his shot, but he can earn his way back, right? And that's the boxing story. That's one of the stories we talk about, right? Is the guy gets beat down, knocked down, and then he tries to build himself back up. That's the Rocky story. Like it's a guy trying to work his way back up to the top after he falls down the mountain. Benavidez, if he beats Plant better than Canelo, all of a sudden we're talking Canelo versus Benavidez naturally, finally. And then we've got Usyk, Fury, heavyweight for all of the marbles. There's nothing bigger than that. It's heavyweight division for all the marbles. There's nothing bigger. And then we've got Haney Lomachenko for all the marbles at lightweight. And you've got that natural process that's supposed to happen, right? It's the older guy in Lomachenko who's been there, done that on the pound-for-pound list. And then you've got that young champion. He's already the champion, but he wants to knock that old guy off the hill, right? And say, this is my division. There's no doubt about it. I'm the guy, and I should be on the pound-for-pound list instead of you. It's natural intrigue to all these fights, and it's been done the natural, organic way. And that's what's beautiful about what's coming up this spring. So that's the positives that we can talk about with the sport. We've talked about what's wrong with it, but that's the positives too, is when it's done right, it's still the best. It's still the best. There's nothing better. And that's why we're still here.
Yep. I know. As much as we can see the negatives in boxing, we can point out the fights that are going to happen, that they're positive fights, and it's a new dawn. Today especially, this is like springtime today. Tomorrow St. Patrick's Day. Them cold danky days are behind us, bro. Mm-hmm. I hope. And boxing is looking real good, man. These fights we're talking about, I don't think we've seen fights like this happening now in the last 6 months. It just hasn't. It hasn't been. This could be a reality. But they just have to just keep going, make it better and better and better, and make boxing great again, bro. I hate to even use that little fucking.
But they need to do it. So, it's been a fun hour, Bruce. And plug your channel. And by the way, your channel, just give me a heads up a day before. I'll come over. I'll swing through, man. We'll talk boxing.
Hey, Callie, man, this was very cool. I appreciate you giving me a call, man. I was doing nothing today. I was just enjoying the day and making some of my Green Dragon tincture over here to keep the joints flowing well. But hey, man, you kind of made my afternoon, brother. Everybody out there, man, God bless you all. You want to stop by my channel, Bruce Gas, Boxing, Jazz, and More. I try to do a little bit of boxing, a little bit of jazz, keeping us all healthy. And God bless. Thank you so much, my brother.
Sub over there strictly for the boxing talk. It's great stuff. And like I said, invite me over whenever, man, and I'll swing through. No doubt. Just give me like a day's notice, and we'll swing through and we'll get it done. But I appreciate you swinging through, man. Thank you.
No doubt about it, man. Peace out.
All right. And it's been a great show, and I appreciate y'all swinging through. And we will be back tomorrow as well, right here around the same time, same place. Peace. God bless.